stop motion frame rates, or FPS, or frames per second, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to tell you why they don't matter, and then I'm going to tell you why they do matter, and then I'm going to give you a guide so you can pick the right frame rate for yourself depending on the level you're at as an animator. So there are some technicalities, but basically with frame rates, the higher the frame rate, the smoother the video is going to play back, and the more realistic it's going to look. It's going to start to look like a real video you might take with a camera or see in your eyes. But for beginners, kind of good news but bad news, there's a lot of other things that affect a video than just frame rates. I would actually say that you shouldn't worry about frame rates when you're a very new beginner. You can make a good video with a bad frame rate. In fact, I made one at 7.5 FPS, and you can still make a bad video with a high frame rate. So it's more important as a beginner to focus on figuring out stop motion, easing in and out, smooth movements, a reasonable timing of events, and those sort of things. When I was first making movies, I would actually shoot the scene and then see just what frame rate made it play back at the most believable speed. That way I could get the figures to walk at a good speed or the cars to move at a good speed. And I would actually end up with movies with different frame rates throughout the video. So the cars would be driving at 8 frames per second, people might be walking at 6, and it was actually pretty good. It's better to do that than to have weird speeds. That said, once you start getting comfortable with stop motion, you do want to stick with one frame rate and pick a good one, because it does affect the video and people will notice if you pick a bad one. So here's where we get to the technical part. If you have your video in an editing software, or you're just posting it to YouTube or Vimeo, then you want to select certain frame rates that'll work with those, because some just should be completely avoided. And the reason for that is because these software and platforms only support certain frame rates. Normal videos are usually 24 to 30 FPS. So if you put in a video that's not that, it'll try to convert it. And so you want to pick a frame rate that is a multiple of one of those. For example, if you have a 12 frame rate stop motion, YouTube, to convert it to 24 FPS, can simply play each picture for 2 frames, and it works completely fine. Whereas if you have 7 FPS, it can't do that. It'll be divided up, because 7 times 4 is 28, and so if it's trying to put it into 30 frames, you're still missing 2 frames. And so it's going to end up playing some frames a little longer than the others, and then maybe skipping a frame. It's just not going to work very well. And so the complete list of frame rates that I would use are 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 24, and 30. So now what frame rate is good for you? I say you want to pick a relatively high frame rate so it looks good, but not high enough that it's really hard and you burn out. You want it to be relatively easy so you can focus on other things like easing in and out and fluid movements. So I would say as a beginner, you would want 6 or 8. I would push for 8 because 6 is pretty slow, but if 8's a little hard, then you can stick with 6. If you're an intermediate, I would say 10, 12, or 15 if you're ambitious. A lot of guys make videos at 12 and they look just fine, but 15 is going to look a little better. If you're a pro, you're probably not watching this video, but some guys do 24 and 30. That's going to be way harder. I would never do that myself, honestly, but it is going to look really good. So that's my complete guide to stop motion frame rates. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks.